I'm Mike Creuzer. I've been using Pardot since 2014. Known to have a knack for solving impossible Pardot problems, usually by the Pardot API. This time it's an Engagement Studio thing. Um, we're going to go into creating an Engagement Studio program that repeats faster than once a day, which is impossible, which is why I'm working on it. Um, it is an impossible thing. We can't make an engagement studio program go faster than once a day. But what we can do is we can get that effect. We can actually set multiple engagement studio programs up in a round robin fashion, so that way we can have more than one engagement studio program run within the same day, and we can structure the prospect so that the prospect it rotates through the round robin engagement studio programs, so we get the effect of having an engagement studio program that runs faster than once a day. What this would look like, here's a quick diagram. We would have a Pardot action list. That's the one kind of hanging out here on the left. And this is a static list. And when we want a prospect to do the thing that the Engagement Studio program is going to do, we add the prospect to this single static list. And then we have a bunch of dynamic lists and Engagement Studio programs that will basically take their turns at processing and actioning that static list. So in this case, we have three. You can see in the first one, there's a dynamic start list for the ESP. The ESP will write to a static list here on the very rightmost side. Our start list, dynamic list for the ESP is looking at both the Pardot action list and this completed static list to decide if it's this ESP's turn to run or not. And we just let these kind of go in order, and they'll just kind of chunk right through in order. We end up repeating this middle one for however many times we need it to repeat. And then our last ESP is a little bit different as well, because we end up needing to clean up all these completed static lists by removing the prospect from all the completed static lists. And what happens is then we don't have any of these, red lines going to the dynamic start list. So now um, that this dynamic list is first one's ready to start over with the process. So it's a pretty simple, like just trying to force a processing order and engagement studio program. Each one of these engagement studio programs will repeat daily, because that's as fast as they can go. And we're just, however many times we need this program to repeat within a single day, that's how many engagement studio programs we have. We have a limit of 10 engagement studio programs, repeating ones. So hopefully we need less than 10 repeating events within a single given day. This is one of those techniques that can really cause a lot of headache if we need to do something this hard and we have other repeating engagement studio programs. We will have collisions with how many repeating engagement studio programs we have. So it's not something that we want to do lightly. Um, what this will look like, I'm going to simplify things. Just having an engagement studio program that is repeating. Uh, let me pull this one up, this example up. This is a technique I call a self-cleaning list. So this is a static list that the engagement studio program looks at, right? So this is the repeating engagement studio start list. This is that static list, completion actions on forms, custom redirects, page actions, whatever files. Will add a prospect to this list to be processed in this repeating in this engagement studio program. It's set to repeat, 1 day repeat, unlimited entry sets, like as fast as we can go, right? So this engagement studio program will do something. In this case, we're sending an email. And then the magic is we remove from list. So now what happens is the prospect is no longer on the list. and we can repeat the Engagement Studio program with a static list multiple times, many times. It takes 30 seconds for processing to 1 or 2 nodes at a time. So like 1 or 2 of these nodes will process every 30 seconds. So if you watch, when you turn on an Engagement Studio program, you kind of watch and reload and watch and reload, you can actually see the prospect counts kind of trickle through the ESP, and it's at speed. So we can do this action, remove from the list, and there's still enough time before they get removed from the main list, that we actually do hit this end node, because that's what we want. We want to make sure that the prospects that get removed hit the end node. So this remove from the start list always has to be immediately before the end node. If it's anywhere else, we risk removing the prospect from the list, from the Engagement Studio program, and then they'll pause right there. And then when we get added again, they'll do like the last step, and then they hit that end, and then they're done, and then they hit that 1-day recycle. So this is the basic trick that I'm working with, is these self-cleaning lists, as I call them. When we want to do this for a repeating ESP faster than once a day, we'll look very similar, right? I have 2 actions here. I have an extra add to list, and then the same process, right? So if we look at our start list, we notice I'm actually doing a different recipient list. This is a ESP1 start list, right? This is the dynamic list. So if we go at our dynamic list, we can see that we have our ESP start list. There's 2 prospects in it. Myself and a test record, right? This is a dynamic list that is, the people are on the repeating ESP start list, the same one we used in the prior example, right? And also, we're not on the repeating first list complete. Let's look at that. So on this Engagement Studio program, we start the list through the dynamic list. We do our actions. In this case, I have 2 meaningful marketing actions. I had this Salesforce campaign. I sent an email. And then I add to a list, and this is one of the note-taking lists. So I see that I'm adding to the repeating ESP first is complete. Then we remove from our static list, not the dynamic list, the static list, and the program ends. So what's happening is I am saying that the program is complete, the first run of the program is complete, and that basically makes sure that this first start list is no longer going to match. If we look at what's going to match, we will see that the second start list is going to match. So we can see a second start list. And we will see in the details that this is a dynamic list with 3 rules. So the prospect is again shows up on our static ESP start list, right? The prospect is on our static ESP 1 is complete, so we're checking to say, hey, they're on the static list. We want to run through the ESP, but hey, they're on the complete list for the first ESP. So now it's the second ESP's turn, and we enforce that by making sure it's not one of the later ones, by making sure that we're not on the second ESP's complete list. And if we look at our Engagement Studio, the second ESP is going to look just like the first. Here's our second. It's going to look identical. So we open up our start node. We will see it's a recipient list. It's the second dynamic list, right, that we just looked at. It's repeating and all that. We have the same actions. We're adding to a list. We're adding to the second ESP complete list because we're in the second ESP. And we're removing from the static start list that our completion actions will add the prospects to. And so that's the process that we will use to go through however many iterations, except for the very last one. The very last one needs to be different. So we can see I have a third start list and a third complete list, and then the fourth start list, and then there's the fourth complete list, right? And then the last start list, because I have 5 versions here, 5 iterations here. And my last one, I'll put it up top. So my last start list, and we notice I don't have a last end list because the next one after the last one is actually the first one. So if we look at our last start list, it's going to look very similar to all the rest, except we're just making sure that we've completed the fourth one, and because there's none after the last, we don't have to check to see if the last one's complete. If we look at the Engagement Studio program for this one, we're going to see it's a little bit different. The Engagement Studio here is longer, right? If we inspect the start node, we're going to see what we expect. It's the recipient list, ESP last start list, right? And again, it's repeating, and then repeating set date daily. And we close this. We see the same actions, but then we see a different set of ending. And if we look, we'll see that these are all removed. So what we're doing is we're actually removing from all the prior completion static lists. So we're removing from the first, removing from the second, we're removing from the third, we're removing from the fourth. We're not adding to the fifth, so we don't have to remove from the fifth. And we're adding, removing from the start, that static start list that the completion actions add the prospect to. We're removing from that just before the end node. So what happens is now, because the prospect is not on any of the completion lists, that first start list is going to see the Engagement Studio, or it's going to see the dynamic list is going to say, hey, I'm on the static start list. I am not on the first Engagement Studio program complete list. Thus, this dynamic list is going to turn on, and we're going to start the first Engagement Studio program over. So we have all these steps, and we can go through these sequentially over the course of probably about 5-10 minutes per Engagement Studio program by the time the lists update and turn on, turn off, and do all that stuff. So the behavior we're going to see is a prospect can fill out we'll pick on filling out a form. Fill out a form today. They'll get added to that static list. The first Engagement Studio program will run with it. We'll do the stuff, and then we'll remove from the list. And now we're sitting between 1 and 2. So that prospect fills out another form with the same completion action to add to the same Engagement Studio program list. Now, because we're on that completed one, repeating ESP first completed list, we're going to start on the second ESP in the same day. It could be, probably not seconds later, but minutes later, we can actually do this again, which is really cool. So we can do this process, and we'll go through all of the Engagement Studio programs in series. But let's say we only filled out 2 forms today, right? We got this far. Tomorrow we come back, we fill out the form again, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to start tomorrow on our third ESP, because we've already done 1, we've already done 2. Remember, we got these set up in a round robin. Nothing's changed with 1 and 2. They're still on the static lists that say they're complete. So we're going to start tomorrow on ESP3. And we can fill out the form after ESP3 is done. We can do ESP4. We can go to fill out the form again. It's ESP5, all in the same day tomorrow. And ESP5 is going to clean all those completion static lists out. And we fill out the form again. And hey, now we can run on ESP1. Fill out the form again. We're on ESP2 all tomorrow. And here's the fun thing, where if we fill out the form one more time tomorrow, so 6 form fills tomorrow, we're hitting ESP3 again. Well, ESP3 is already ran once in that day. it will not run again because the Engagement Studio program says repeat daily, right? So it will actually wait until the following day. So we do have a limit, and how many times we can repeat, and it's about the number of Engagement Studio programs we run. So that's the kind of the process of going through and faking a repeating Engagement Studio program by just making sure that our Engagement Studio programs will duplicate Engagement Studio programs will run and fire repeatedly. It's not that bad to set this up. I created these demo programs in 50 minutes. It was 11 minutes to create the 11 static lists, and it was about 50 minutes or 40 minutes to create the 5 ESPs. They're pretty simple, but it's not that hard to set these up. The first one and the last one are kind of the important ones. The last one because we got to make sure we clean all these. If I need to make like just change the email template, I'll go ahead and I'll do that in all the ESP programs. If I have to do like a lot of structural changes and stuff like that, what I'll do is I'll do that in the first one. I'll do all that structural change in the last one, and then I'll delete all the ones in between, and I'll just copy the first one, and I just edit that start list to the new, second or third or whatever start list, and then I edit the second to last end node where I'm adding it to the complete start list, so that way the numbers all line up and it's the right one for the current program. And it's like 2 minutes to copy all these ESPs and just kind of rewrap them into their current position in the run robin line. Not that big of a deal to maintain. I was actually quite surprised how easy it was to maintain these once I had to make changes. So yeah, this is the process to do amazingly cool stuff that is unnecessarily awesome, and we probably shouldn't do this, but if we really need to, here's a way.